Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Ravens absolutely dominated the Bucs on every level on Monday Night Football. Also, which team will knock the Celtics off the top in the East? And the West runs through OKC.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Lamar Jackson burnishing his back-to-back MVP resume on Monday night, a 5-touchdown performance to go along with 52 yards on the ground. Derrick Henry also added a $169, and the Ravens beat the Bucs 41-31. Of course, Tampa Bay had to make it interesting in the fourth quarter. It's a Ravens game after all. Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens joins me now, and Kevin, this Ravens team has been an absolute wagon the last couple of weeks. What is working for them right now?
The answer, Peter, on offense is everything. I mean, everything this Ravens team does on offense just seems to work. Tough start early in the game, obviously going down 10-0 to Tampa, but you see them work play action. But this was really, I mean, they didn't really use Derrick Henry a ton until later in the game. This really was Lamar Jackson dotting up his receivers. Mark Andrews getting involved. Rashad Bateman has a really nice day. And it's not just the one-player show or two-player show with Lamar Jackson throwing the ball in there. I know we've talked about this before, you and I. You see spreading the ball around, and it's a pick-your-poison offense. And then you get going in like the second half, third quarter, fourth quarter, and you have Derrick Henry bowling at you, 20-plus miles an hour, and you're like, who wants a piece of that? The answer is nobody. So it's just everything is just so in lockstep with them on offense right now. Defensively, obviously, they have some things to work on. They still can't finish games like you talked about, but on offense, man, it is, maybe the greatest show on turf right now this NFL season.
Yeah, and there were questions coming in, Todd Monken in year 2, there was going to be this growth, but what were you going to get from Rashad Bateman? What were you going to get from Zay Flowers? How was the tight end hierarchy going to shake out? And I think those were questions to varying degrees over the first month of the season. That all seems to have just kind of locked into place, especially as Derrick Henry has gotten going. This has to be on the high end of outcomes of what you thought was possible for Derrick Henry. I'll speak for myself. It is on the high end of what I thought he still had left in the tank. This is unbelievable. Did you think they could get this from him? Like a guy who could end the year as the league leading rusher, Kevin?
It's crazy.
I can't even get the words out.
Yeah, it's that crazy. I mean, this Ravens team has done everything to surround Lamar Jackson with talent in this season. Now, it's not like they're going out there and trading for a Devontae Adams type of player. But in terms of getting Derrick Henry, this is, I think, what this rushing attack needed. They had good guys. I mean, look, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, those were good players. But for Derrick Henry, the Ravens went out there and got Lamar Jackson, a certified stud running back, to place next to him. And so on the range of outcomes, I thought it was possible we could see this. Obviously, I didn't think it was like the most likely scenario. But both those guys take pressure off of each other. Lamar takes pressure off of Derrick Henry. Derrick takes pressure off of Lamar, and it is good from obviously a longevity perspective for both guys as the season wears on, and also from a game perspective where you have to pick your poison. It's kind of like what I've been saying here. Derrick is a guy that I think benefits from, it's kind of like the wear you down closer type role where you obviously want to play him as much as you can. They feel confident in Justice Hill being a very nice complementary piece. He gets a lot of that third down work, sometimes early down situations early in the game. And they're also getting Keaton Mitchell back at some point, who knows when. But it's a really nice situation they have at running back. And for Derrick, he's playing in an offense where Lamar can play Superman and he can kind of sit back. But then when his number is called, he obviously can take that cape from Lamar, put it on there, and he can say, hey, man, I'll take over for you for a little bit.
Yeah, I know they're not the same birds, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. In the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry kind of case, if you'll apologize, the foul pun. Oh, I did it again. Kevin, any concern about this defense, though? Early on, it looked like the Bucs were going to get sort of whatever they wanted. 21 points in the fourth quarter. I understand the game mostly decided, and we can't go without saying a gruesome injury at the end for Chris Godwin on an unfortunate play. I think there are going to be questions about whether or not it was wise for him to be in the game. But this passing defense especially has not been up to where we are used to seeing this Baltimore defense play.
Yeah, it certainly is a concern. And I know that there was the finishing aspect in this game. It has obviously been the finishing aspect in multiple different games. And, at the end of the day, this Ravens team, the talent is not the issue on that defense. I mean, they have talented players on all three levels. It's about execution. They're still trying to work with Zach Orr and his defensive play calls, miscommunications, and just blowing coverages. The run defense is great. Didn't look as good tonight, obviously, against Tampa, but it's really the pass defense and those miscommunications that have been the really tough thing for this offense, or for this defense, to kind of go and kind of bounce back from, where you think, okay, they had a tough game. The talent's going to be enough for them to bounce back, and it just hasn't happened yet. Part of it is they're just in positive game flow the entire time. So as a defense, that means you're going to get the ball thrown on you, and teams are going to abandon the run. But I judge based off of yards per attempt, not total yards, for that exact reason. And the yards per attempt number is not that pretty either. So something has to be fixed there. This is not sustainable moving forward into the playoffs. But luckily, it's the regular season. Teams are still trying to figure things out. And luckily for the Ravens, they still have a lot of time to do so.
Stay up to date on the Baltimore Ravens all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Ravens on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Bucs or the Knicks? Who's more likely to knock off the Celtics? Before we answer that, there was another game on Monday Night Football that featured two teams in the West, but the NFL, not the NBA. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you canvas analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Chargers and the Cardinals also played on Monday Night Football.
The Chargers played their ugliest game under Jim Harbaugh yet, and their missed opportunities came back to bite them in a brutal loss. This is Daniel Wade here from Locked On Chargers, coming to you after the 17-15 loss to the Cardinals in primetime in a game where the Chargers offense just simply didn't do enough. They had to settle for 5 field goals in a game where Justin Herbert threw for 349 yards with a banged-up group of skill position players. Something has to change offensively. The Chargers have now gone 15 straight drives without a touchdown, going back to the last game against the Denver Broncos, and have only scored 1 second-half touchdown since week 1. It's been brutal to watch, and missed opportunities were the name of the game, and we should have known it was going this way when Jalen Reagor fumbled inside the 5-yard line after a 41-yard pass from Justin Herbert, and the Chargers never got close to scoring a touchdown again. This one falls squarely on the offense, and something has to change. But for more on the Chargers, make sure to follow the Locked On Chargers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The San Francisco 49ers confirmed Monday that wide receiver Brandon Ayuk has a torn ACL and MCL in his right knee. He will miss the rest of the season. Ayuk faces a battle to be ready for the 2025 season at this stage. And on top of that, the illness that limited wideout Deebo Samuel to 4 snaps against the Chiefs is technically a form of pneumonia, according to 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan. Samuel has fluid buildup in his lungs and remains in a local hospital after checking in Sunday night. This is becoming very concerning for the San Francisco 49ers. They are in a perilous place right now. In a stunning move, WNBA players have opted out of their current collective bargaining agreement and face the prospect of a work stoppage if they don't negotiate a new deal with the league by the end of the 2025 season. The elected members of the Women's National Basketball Players Association announced Monday that the players are seeking a business model that reflects their true value, encompassing higher salaries, enhanced professional working conditions, expanded health benefits, and crucial investments needed for long-term growth. Those are the words of the WNBPA. And the World Series will be expensive to see in person this year. Resale tickets for the opener at Dodger Stadium against the New York Yankees started at almost $1,400 on Monday evening. One resale outlet reported that the average ticket price for this year's World Series is already twice as much as last year's Arizona Diamondbacks and Texas Rangers series. Some ticket prices are topping $30,000 per seat. I talked to a friend who had pre-bought Mets tickets for the World Series. Those, for just a handful of tickets, $7,000. It is outrageous. And yeah, New York and LA not helping. The Boston Celtics aren't just the beasts of the East. They are the kings of the NBA right now. Will a team from their own conference knock them off the top? Our Locked On hosts from the best teams in the East discuss the possibility of who it could be.
Let's get to it. I said two hosts are confident they will beat the Boston Celtics. Okay, raise your hands. Who is it? Of course, the Knicks. Of course, the Knicks. Bucs. I love the confidence in the Bucs. This is an interesting question here. Alex Wolf. Well, I wonder why you think the New York Knicks are capable of beating the Boston Celtics.
If it makes you feel better, I believed that before the cat trade. So now I just extra believe it.
Well, of course, because they were bitter before the cat trade.
Yeah, I think that I think they already had a core that could have potentially made this work. The cat trade at its best turns them into the best offense in the NBA. I don't think that's that hard to imagine. And if that happens and they can produce a top half of the league defense in terms of like net rating, I think their point differential is going to be pretty solid, but it'll probably feel pretty familiar to you as a Celtics fan from last year. And I really think that if this all works out, death be damned, they could really make this work. And you know, it obviously we saw with the Knicks last year, injury luck and everything has to, be good to them and all that. But if it is, I like their chances.
So let's open this up to the room. Let's open this Knicks conversation up to the room, because I actually think that the reaction has been a little more lukewarm than I expected. A lot of people are kind of like iffy on adding Karl-Anthony Towns. Let's go to Kayla, because the Sixers are right there with everybody. Kayla, what's your take on Karl-Anthony Towns joining the Knicks, and how does that change your opinion of the top of the East?
I think people that aren't in favor of it are absolutely crazy, because when you look at this trade right now, I get it. You lose Dante DiVincenzo, who was a really big piece for you in the playoffs, but Cat can compete against Joel Embiid. He's now the only center in the league that can compete against Joel Embiid for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I'm not saying the Sixers are better than Knicks or even better than the Celtics, but what I do say is they may give them a run for their money when it comes to the playoffs. So as covering the Sixers, when I look at this, I say, oh boy, I don't want to see this. For the Knicks, I think it's a really good deal. I'm excited to see what he can do, and I especially think that they're going to be number 2 in the East behind the Celtics, although that pains me a lot to say.
Ooh, Camille, you're there with the Bucs, like slept on Bucs. People forget. Oh yeah, that's right. You got Giannis. You got good players, but people are not high on them. How far away does this Knicks deal separate them from everybody, or do you think the top of the East is like a little more tightly packed?
I don't really think that it changes my opinion on the New York Knicks. I already thought the Knicks were going to be a top 4 team in the East. However, the rankings stand or shake out at the end is how they shake out. But with Cat there, I believe in the offense has potential to really take it to another level, but I still have a lot of questions defensively. Like I know Caleb mentioned that Cat is a center that has the size to go up against Embiid. Well, he only has the size. Like, it's not as if he is known as being a defensive stalwart. Meanwhile, in Milwaukee, you do have a big 7-foot center as well with Brook Lopez, who is known defensively as well. Yes, he has been getting older, but he still was one of the top centers in the league when it comes to contesting shots last year. So I think that the Bucs have a good shot at it still. But when it comes to the Knicks in particular, I love the fit offensively. I have some questions defensively for them.
Danny, so if you're looking at this Karl-Anthony Towns trade, where do you put the Knicks? Do you put them to what's your top 4?
So I think that the top of the East, like it's Boston, and then there's sort of a gap, and there's everybody else. And the Knicks are in that group with, I think, the Cavs, with the Sixers, and I'm not high on Milwaukee right now just because I think they're old and injury prone. I think the Knicks are going to be awesome offensively, and I think they're going to win a lot of games. But I'll echo what Camille said. I have a lot of questions defensively, what they're going to look like with Karl-Anthony Towns. Mitchell Robinson obviously has injury issues. I don't know that that's going to go away. Who's going to defend the rim for the Knicks? Like, that is something that might not matter a ton during the regular season, but when push comes to shove in the postseason, that's going to be a really big deal. And that's the one aspect of this trade. And I know that didn't change with this trade, but it didn't get better with this trade. And that's been a question now that I just think gets a little bit more amplified as far as things go when I look at the Knicks.
Stay up to date on the association all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On NBA on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the West goes through Oklahoma City. If you're an NFL fan and you're looking for a big return, look no further than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can look at some early lines for Week 8. Thursday night features the Rams and the Vikings, kind of a banger. FanDuel likes the Vikings on the road by 3 despite their loss to the Lions this last week. So what are you waiting for? That's FanDuel.com to get started. Luka in Dallas, Jokic in Denver. The Suns still have KD and Booker. And the West is OKC's to lose, as our Locked On host from the top Western Conference teams debated.
Gentlemen, let's just start right here. Who should be the actual favorites in the West? Ryland, your Thunder are the #1 team on FanDuel, both for championship winner in the West, like as of the West teams, and West Conference winner. Do they have it right?
I think that they have it right in the sense of when you look at this team, they're one of the deepest teams in the NBA. They check all the boxes from a rotational standpoint, from a coaching standpoint. They have a top 5 player in the league, which you need to win a championship. And the odds are banking on Chet and J-Dub being ready to fill the shoes of a number 2 and a number 3 option, whichever one you want to put where, of what it takes to win in the playoffs, of those guys carrying offensively, which they did not do a year ago. I'm fully ready to admit that those two guys left a lot to be desired offensively in the postseason when things got tough against Dallas. It comes down to, are you going to gamble on those guys being ready or not in their second attempt? That's really tough to do. Historically, guys haven't been ready in their second attempt. So it's not a doomsday scenario if they're not. But if they are, then you don't really want to put a limit on this team.
I'm happy I'm still here. I don't know if we can do that. I feel like it's like we have to have the even amount of people on each show. So I just keep ending up at the top, and then the team does not back that up. But I love that I'm still
Brendan, I honestly think that like the Suns have a great chance. Like I honestly like they're the team that I think if you're going to go through this, because like look, I don't think you can argue Wolves got better. You cannot argue Nuggets got better. Right. So and then like the Mavericks got a lot better as long as a lot of things go right. And so
better in a way.
I think OKC has like the highest floor and the highest ceiling. Like I have OKC right now at like 62 wins after dropping them down 3 tiers. Like it's ridiculous how good they are at every facet of the game. They have to be the favorite in the Western Conference.
Yeah, the Thunder are the only team that got obviously better, as you just said, Matt. Like if you look at the best overall acquisitions of the offseason, like, I mean, you alluded to the Wolves. The Wolves got different. I don't know if they got better. We'll see. But it's going to be a different type of Timberwolves team. And like the Suns, the primary change is the coach, right? Like, so if you're looking at the best moves, period, and which team also improved the most in the entire NBA, I mean, everybody seems to think the Thunder, which maybe is a red flag. But I agree, Rylan. I do think the Thunder are the favorite, coming from a team that was in the conference finals, went further than the Thunder last year. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, who is the team if it's not the Thunder?
See, that's where we're gonna fight.
Yeah,
like
this is where the balls come in.
That's where we'll fight.
That's why Rylan is between the two of us.
Yeah, no, I don't think we are though. I really don't think we are because I'm so high on the Mavericks. Like I'm super high on the Mavericks. I have Luka winning MVP and then winning 55+ games, and then them losing in the second round.
Well, that's the other part is like who's the favorite in the West as the team to come out of the West or the team to get number one in the West? Because I don't think I would pick the Mavericks to be number one in the West as much as I like what the Mavericks did and all that. Luka is going to miss his own games. He's out with a calf contusion right now. Kyrie is always going to miss some games. And, Klay Thompson is going to be 35 in February. So I don't know if we're thinking about this team to be this iron horse. All right, we've got all these guys that are going to make this crazy regular season push, but we also haven't seen like the signature Luka regular season yet. Like we saw Dirk have like a 67 win season or, another 60 win season. We saw that and he wins the MVP. We have not seen that from Luka yet. It's been so up and down for various reasons. Some of them not even, a lot of them not even his fault, but we have not seen that yet. And this is the deepest team he's ever had. So if it's going to happen, it could happen this year. But I would say the Mavericks are the favorite to come out of the West in the playoffs, but not necessarily in the regular season.
And finally, a few weeks ago, we mentioned that the Milwaukee Brewers were the good luck Chuck of Major League Baseball. Whoever they lose to in the playoffs eventually makes it to the World Series. Well, mercifully, the circle has been broken. The New York Mets are the first team ever to beat the Brewers in the postseason, but not make the World Series. Rest easy, Brew Crew. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, Tua Tagovailoa could actually play for the Dolphins this week. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.